So let's talk about one of the most famous ideas in all of economics, Adam Smith's invisible hand. And yeah, we're going to figure out how your totally selfish need for a good cup of coffee actually, believe it or not, helps everyone. All right, I want to jump right in with a pretty wild question. Can being selfish be a good thing? Could it even be sacred? I know, it sounds completely backwards, but you got to stick with me on this one. Because the answer, funnily enough, starts with something you probably did just this morning, grabbing a coffee. I mean, just think about it for a sec. Why was that coffee so good? And why was the price, pretty fair? You think the cafe owner is just some super generous person whose main goal in life is to make you happy? Probably not. They made you an amazing coffee because they wanted your money. It's all about their own self-interest. And get this idea is anything but new. We're talking more than 200 years ago. A genius named Adam Smith wrote this very famous line. He's basically saying, look, we get our dinner not because the baker loves us, but because the baker needs to make a living. It's an idea that is so simple, so powerful, and it still perfectly explains how our world works today. So how in the world does all this individual selfishness magically create a good result for everybody? Well, Smith had a name for it, the invisible hand. But honestly, a really great way to think about it now is like an invisible autopilot for the entire economy. Okay, so here's the textbook definition. The invisible hand, in Chinese it's 看不见的手, is all about the unintended but really positive social benefits that come from people just doing their own thing. It's this autopilot system that guides the whole economy, and there's not a single person in the cockpit telling it where to go. And what's so cool about this is how you can break it down. Look, on one side you've got individual self-interest, or 个人我是. The cafe owner just wants to turn a profit, right? But that one goal, that one motivation, leads directly to the public interest, or 社会公益. And what does that mean for us? We all get great, affordable coffee. It's a total win-win. But you might be wondering, how does this autopilot know where to go? Well, it uses something called price signals, or 价格讯号. Just think of prices as a kind of GPS for the economy. If suddenly tons of people want oat milk lattes, the price of them goes up. That sends a signal out to everyone else saying, hey, you can make some serious money selling oat milk. And just like that, the system automatically sends resources exactly where people want them. And this is where the real magic is. This whole process creates what economists call unintended consequences. That cafe owner didn't start their day thinking, you know what, I'm going to build a vibrant and thriving coffee culture for my entire city today. Nah, they just wanted to pay their bills. But that happy accident, that unintended consequence, is that we all get to enjoy an amazing cafe scene. Now this autopilot system, it works great, as long as you let it do its thing. So what happens when someone tries to grab the steering wheel? What happens when that invisible hand gets tied up? Adam Smith saw this exact same issue way back in the 1700s. And we can think of it today as the helicopter parent problem. A parent that tries to control every single tiny detail of their kid's life. And usually, it doesn't end well. Smith was basically saying that when a government does this to an economy, it can cause some pretty big problems too. He was really arguing against the systems of his time where governments were micromanaging everything, who you could trade with, what you were allowed to make, what price you had to sell it at. Smith's point was that when governments try to plan it all and force the hand, they usually just get in the way and end up making everybody worse off. So, instead of that, Smith championed this really powerful idea he called natural liberty, or in Chinese, 自然自由. All it means is that everyone should be free to work, to create, and to compete with each other, as long as they play fair and don't break the basic rules of justice. But wait, this is super important, and it's where a lot of people get Adam Smith totally wrong. Hearing all this, you might think he was some kind of anarchist who wanted zero government whatsoever, but that's absolutely not true. In fact, Smith said the government, or what he called the sovereign, had three really crucial jobs to do. First, protect everyone from violence. Second, make sure there's a justice system so people don't cheat each other. And third, provide public works, or 公共工程. Things like roads and bridges that everybody needs but that no single person would ever build on their own. So the government's job is basically to build a safe, fair playground and then let people play freely inside it. And this all leads us to the final and maybe the most game-changing idea from Adam Smith. He completely flipped the script on how we think about a word we use every single day, wealth. And this just says it all.
See, before Adam Smith, almost everyone thought a country's wealth was literally the amount of gold and silver sitting in the king's basement. Smith came along and said, nope, you've got it all wrong. A nation's real wealth, its caifu, is the quality of life for its average citizens. It's the food they eat, the homes they live in, all the things that make life easier and better. The whole point of an economy isn't to make the king rich, it's to make life better for everyone.
So that leaves us with one last massive question to think about. If this whole system really runs on self-interest, what stops it from just becoming a greedy free-for-all? What kind of moral foundation does this invisible hand need to actually work? Smith knew that for all of this to function, you need a strong sense of justice and fairness. But that's a topic for another day and for another one of his incredible books. Thanks for diving into this with me.